Welcome everyone to this Globus catch-up and office hours. We're pretty excited to have the Globus team join us. Welcome, Jonathan, I think for the first time, and Roshana, really glad to have you join us. So I'll just give a quick introduction for the benefit of those that haven't joined us one of these before. Usually they run a bit more smoothly than this, but I suppose Globus and aarnet, we've established a strong partnership and working relationship that's, I suppose, just going from strength to strength. So we've worked very closely with the Globus team over the last few years, and what aarnet's doing is providing basic subscriptions to the Globus service, and there's obviously additional features such as high assurance and different cloud connectors available. This is the updated graphic or infographic that I lifted off the Globus website yesterday. So as you can see there, it's transferring up to 1.8 petabytes a day, 69,000 plus active data collections. The service is well established and going from strength to strength. A little bit about aarnet. Hopefully most people know who we are, but we're Australia's NREN, so we provide connectivity to the universities and a lot of the institutions, GLAM institutions, hospitals around the country. We're a not-for-profit, as are Globus. So we're also part of the larger network, and I thought this was a slide worth putting in just in terms of global connectivity, that the aarnet network obviously connects all the institutions within Australia, but very much connects Australian researchers to the world. So Globus is proving invaluable, not just for internal use amongst the universities, but for sharing amongst themselves, and really much as science gets more collaborative and global, being able to share with collaborators anywhere. And I suppose this is the commonality we have, and this is the strength of the relationship with aarnet and Globus, is that I can't quite remember where I lifted this quote from. Could easily be from Globus or from aarnet website, but really we're very much focused on being able to provide that reliable infrastructure. So Australian and I should say New Zealand researchers can focus on doing their research and the science rather than spending time trying to figure out ways to move data. Now, I just thought I'd sandwich this quote in. This is something I just came across in the last couple of days. This is there's been some recent commentary, I suppose, with some of the policy changes and that are going on, particularly in the US. But the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sydney here was recently in the press commenting on the strong relationship between University of Sydney and Harvard. And I thought it was quite interesting that he highlighted that over the past decade, Harvard has been their top collaborating institution globally. So for me, this really just highlights that the capacity of Globus to connect institutions, connect researchers with their collaborators anywhere in the world is more crucial now than ever. Just quickly, what's new since our last catch up? I would have mentioned in the last meeting we had that we're looking at how we can develop a Globus community. As the uptake starts to build, we have people who are responsible for delivering the Globus service within their institution, looking for support, looking for basic questions around how it works, what's a collection, what's the difference between a guest collection and a managed collection. What training resources, how do I start using flows? So we're sort of looking at how we can help support the a bit of a grassroots community initiative. But the major change there, I suppose, since our last meeting, is that we've kind of already progressed from Australia now to working closely with our colleagues over in New Zealand. So we've kind of quickly moved from Globus Community Australia to Australasia, and welcome to everyone from New Zealand that's been able to join us today. So I think that's going to be a really fruitful collaboration as we manage to progress that. What I'm going to do is hand over to Greg, who's going to introduce Jonathan and give us a bit of background on what we'll be discussing in this session.
Great, thanks, Greg. Yeah, so when Greg and I were putting together the agenda for our meetings this year, I kind of thought about having a compliance talk, and for a couple of reasons. One, I get to introduce my colleague Jonathan Solorzano. Jonathan is our compliance officer. He's been with us for what, about a year and a half now. So he's
That's
not
right.
really a new Globus person, but he's certainly come well up to speed and has just done an absolute mind-blowingly fantastic job with our compliance efforts at Globus. So kind of the gist of what we wanted to do today is we'll kind of introduce you to some of the standards and things that we need to adhere to in the US and that Jonathan deals with. But we also kind of want to turn this on its head. We want to hear from you because we're not really all that familiar with some of the standards that may be coming down the road that you think you might have to deal with and that will affect us because we're partners and things that we may need to keep our eyes out down the road. So without further ado, Jonathan, why don't you take it away? Jonathan Solorzano, our compliance officer from Globus.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg. I really appreciate that. The warm welcome. Your check is in the mail. Thank you very much for those kind words. I don't know. I'm sharing the screen here. Let me know if you all can see my slides, and then have about 10 minutes, I believe, to kind of go through some of the highlights, like Greg said. And then we really are very interested in having this conversation with you all and making sure that we can support you as best as we can. So that being said, just if someone could confirm the slides, well, if that's all looking good, perfect. All right. Sounds great. Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Jonathan. I am the GRC manager here at Globus. So just a very brief agenda here for kind of what I'm going to cover again in these next few minutes. I want to give you all a big picture of the GRC program here at Globus, the Governance, Risk, and Compliance Program. You may see also used interchangeably compliance for short. It's less of a mouthful. So we'll take a look at that, kind of the high level, what our approach is, what some of the inputs are that shape what we're trying to do. I'll touch very briefly on some of the more significant high level kinds of policies, regulation, some of the changes that we see coming down the pike that are impacting our users and collaborators here in the US and abroad. And then, like I said, the lion's share of the conversation, we'd love to have a conversation with you all and see how we can best support the work that you do and continue this great collaboration. So again, high level, our approach to the GRC. My background is as a security analyst and a system administrator, so that's kind of what I was doing in the trenches beforehand. My colleague as well, we're actually very excited that within Globus, we have a team of two, which is a huge team in the compliance world. So very pleased that we've been able to grow this aspect of the work that we're doing at Globus to support you all. She as well is a security engineer by trade. So we very much bring an approach to thinking about compliance as a supporter of security first principles. And that is very important to what we do, both operationally and in our approach to thinking about compliance for our customers. So we build that in. That is kind of the driver for how we think about compliance. We use it to demonstrate and ensure that we are having these good principles in place. Our aim is to be proactive versus reactive. Thus, this conversation with you all today, the landscape is very quickly changing. There's always something new to be mindful of, regulatory changes, policy changes across all kinds of the research that our users do. So always trying to stay one step ahead, or at least not too far behind in terms of how we approach the things that we do. And then ultimately, all of the work is toward the aim of ensuring our commitment, demonstrating, ensuring, making sure that your data is secure and that the research that you do can continue to be done. We want to take as much of the mental load off of your plate in terms of, do I comply with this regulation or that regulation, this policy, that policy, ensuring that you can trust that when you use Globus to do your work, that the work is at the forefront of the research is at the forefront of what you're doing, and you can trust us to kind of take on the all the context and all the things around that to make sure that you can do your best work. That being said, some of the big drivers, the inputs that kind of shape how we approach our program, the shape of our program, the principles, the policies that we have in place, law and regulation. I know that's more of an America-centric term. Regulation may be different, it mean different things in different places. But the context here, kind of government level, at the highest seat of government down to local kind of community, whatever applies in terms of requirements. We factor that into the programs that we build, the controls that we implement, the direction and strategy going forward. Our customer needs obviously are critical in the things that we put in place, our program, again, our controls. And that is often kind of communicated to us via the language of contracts. So we do work very closely with our contracts team to make sure that we're staying ahead of the requirements as those come through. We use that as a strategic input in shaping our program and the direction that we take. And then obviously industry standard, best practice, kind of just the principles that do not change in terms of how we think about securing our systems. That being said, our program internally for our organization and our operations and the controls that we implement, we base off of the NIST risk management framework. That's the high level, if you're aware of things like ISO, kind of like the information security management system that we use. It's a lifecycle driven program where we think about risk at the system level, at the organizational level. We have this lifecycle model where we continuously monitor, assess against these things. So that's kind of the big picture, how we think about securing our systems. And from that, as a supplement to that, rather, the framework that we use is the NIST 853 revision 5 controls for a moderate baseline that is a FIPS 199 moderate target. That puts us at about 287 controls that we implement across our Globus systems, our production systems, our organization. And in line with that, I highlight here especially 800-171, which map to the controls in 853. We're also compliant with those controls. We rather implement those controls, adhere to that guidance. I call it specifically revision 2 because that's what most folks are working with. But that is a subset of these controls which target a moderate baseline, which in effect have to do with confidentiality of sensitive data. So I'll highlight that specifically. You'll kind of get the context here in a moment when I talk about some of the things that are coming down that are impacting our users in the US, researchers in the US and across overseas as well. The regulatory frameworks that we also comply with are HIPAA for protected PHI and GDPR as well. So we have all of that kind of baked into the way that we implement controls and policy and procedure for our systems. That being said, we'll look at some of the requirements here in the US. These big 3 kind of requirements, I realize this is always changing, but I noted that this was mentioned in the agenda for today, so I wanted to highlight especially that NIH genomic data sharing policy, which we'll look at very briefly here in another slide. I know I'm giving you a lot of alphabet soup for just a couple of things, and then we can have the conversation that we're looking forward to having. Also, some other things that we factor in as well are the CMMC model, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model, and NSPM 33, the Presidential Memorandum, which has to do with securing federal research. All of these I highlight especially because they call out explicitly 800-171. So that is a framework that we are very much complying with and want to call out to our researchers that work internationally, collaborate with international institutions, that is something that we have put in place. And again, kind of trying to remove that mental load up. Is this something that at least this one system complies with? Yes, we do comply at the high assurance level. With these, the control set 800-171 revision 2. I use some other things that I'll highlight, which are always on our mind as well. HIPAA, FedRAMP, we are considering that. Anything that has to do with securing sensitive data, always we're building into being aware of kind of tracking as we continue to mature our program. And then again, just to touch here in these last few minutes on the GDS, so this policy kind of sets the requirements for working with, for researchers working with federally funded, NIH-funded research projects, rather. The policy itself was released in 2014. There was an update, and I think the thing most pertinent to this conversation in July of 2024, which is now currently in effect. that impacts specifically researchers that are doing work with what is called controlled access data. There are, I believe, 21 repositories that require, if you access this information, regardless of where you are, that your institution be compliant with NIST 800-171 controls. And specifically, there's a call out for cloud service providers that process any kind of data that is coming from these repositories, which I can highlight here shortly. So we are compliant with those controls. We obviously, there are multiple layers of compliance that are required here, but the one that we can cover and that we support for Globus services is that third-party CSP requirement. Also, I just want to highlight that if your institutions are mindful of or compliant with ISO 27001, that can be used as an alternative to the 800-171 requirements. And then just to show here some of those repositories that require following this NIST security best practice document. The update to the GDS policy includes some of these. I can share the slides at the end. This will all be linked there. So if any of your researchers are working with information data from these repositories, that requirement is in play as of January 2025. And I know a lot of institutions are trying to figure out how to make this go, how to make sure that their systems are compliant. A lot of it will come from attestations that the PIs give when they re-up their agreements. So that's something that is handled on a case-by-case basis. But again, for the sake of kind of supporting the work that you all do, we want to make sure that we can take that mental load off of your plates. And then, yeah, so as we're getting here to the 10-minute mark, just want to highlight again the conversation, really what we have been looking forward to for the past few weeks as we kind of prepared for this, is having a conversation with you all to think about what the compliance challenges and needs are in your space in New Zealand and Australia. I know I was doing a little bit of research. I'm by no means no expert, so want to kind of learn here, have a conversation with you all, make sure that we can strategically implement the things that we have to support the work that you all do. I looked into the Essential 8, which is wonderful. I wish that we could have just 8 controls, versus the 200, 300 plus, which I think is a really awesome model. I think very robust. I was really enjoying a lot of the AU policies that I was taking a look at. I know there are, in Australia at least, a lot of policies in play, the Critical Infrastructure Act, the Cybersecurity Act. I know that recently education has kind of been brought under that umbrella. The Privacy Act of '88. So these things, we want to be mindful of and support as best as we can, and kind of understand where we can, where the needs are for us as a service provider. And again, to just empower our colleagues, our users to do the best research that you can. And to support good science and research in that way. So that is what I had in terms of kind of a very quick crash course on some of the things that we're mindful of, our controls, our policies. And yeah, now would love to have a conversation with you and talk through a little bit more what the challenges are that you face and how we can support and do the best we can to continue this great partnership that we have with you. So thank you.
Just again, want to thank the Globus team for giving up their time this evening. Making it available, and specifically Jon for being able to share his expertise with us. So no doubt this will be an ongoing conversation for us. So we're at time. Thanks for everybody for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in the next session, if not before.